We live in a world obsessed with big wins, giant leaps, and overnight success stories. Social media makes it look like everyone is having these massive breakthroughs while you're stuck waiting for something extraordinary to happen in your own life. But here's the truth most people miss. It's not the big things that change your life. It's the small things you do consistently. Tiny, almost unnoticeable habits add up and shape who you are becoming. The smallest action done daily has more power than the biggest plan left undone, because real transformation is built in the ordinary moments you repeat again and again. Think about it. When a seed is planted, it doesn't turn into a tree overnight. It grows in silence, in small, invisible steps that nobody notices, until one day you look up and realize it has become something strong, rooted, and unshakable. That's exactly how small actions work in your life. Whether it's drinking one more glass of water, putting your phone down an hour before bed, or writing one page a day, those tiny changes compound over time. They don't look like much in the beginning, but they quietly rewrite the direction of your future. The person you'll become 5 years from now is hidden inside the small decisions you make today. The problem is, we underestimate the power of small. We think if it's not dramatic, it doesn't matter. But imagine the opposite. Imagine ignoring those small actions every day. One skipped workout doesn't make you unhealthy, but years of skipping them does. One impulsive reaction doesn't ruin a relationship, but constant reactions without self-control will. Transformation happens both ways, positive or negative, depending on what small actions you choose to stack up. Every time you act, you're casting a vote for the kind of life you want to live, and those votes eventually build your reality. Here's where most people get stuck. They expect instant results. You drink more water for a week, and you don't notice much difference. You journal for 3 days, and it feels pointless. But that's the trap, because change doesn't announce itself right away. Change is subtle, quiet, and almost invisible at first. It's like saving $1 every day. On day 1, it's not impressive. On day 30, it's still small, but fast forward 5 years, and you've built something solid. Habits and small actions work the exact same way. They multiply when you give them time. Think of your daily actions as drops of water falling on a stone. One drop doesn't do anything, but over months and years, those drops carve into the stone itself. That's what happens to your mind, your body, your relationships, and your goals when you practice consistency. It's not that one small habit changes everything instantly. It's that repetition of that habit reshapes your life. The compounding effect of time and consistency makes the smallest action more powerful than you realize in the moment. Every choice is carving, shaping, and molding your future self. This is why discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation is loud and exciting, but it burns out. Discipline, built on small actions, is quiet but steady. Anyone can start something big when they feel inspired, but real transformation happens when you show up on the days you don't feel like it. It's brushing your teeth even when you're tired, saying thank you even when you're stressed, taking that short walk even when it feels easier to sit. Those are not big, glamorous actions, but they're the ones that actually move the needle in your life. The most freeing part of this truth is that you don't need to change your entire life overnight. You don't need to overhaul your routines or chase some impossible version of perfection. You only need to focus on the small actions you can do today. What can you do in the next 5 minutes to move yourself forward? What habit can you repeat that will pay off tomorrow? Big change is overwhelming, but small action is doable. And once you start stacking those doable actions, momentum kicks in and transformation becomes inevitable. Who you are is not defined by what you say you want. It's defined by what you do over and over again. Identity isn't built in declarations or dreams. It's built in daily habits. If you repeatedly choose discipline, you become a disciplined person. If you consistently avoid challenges, you become someone who avoids growth. The actions you repeat every day are like bricks, and those bricks build the foundation of your character. The habits you live out aren't just things you do, they are things that shape who you become in the process. Think about how you describe yourself. If you call yourself a reader, it's because you read. If you call yourself an athlete, it's because you train. If you say you're healthy, it's because you've built the habit of eating well or moving your body regularly. Your identity is tied to behavior, not just intention. That's why habits are so powerful, because they transform your self-image from the inside out. Once you start living in a way that aligns with who you want to be, you no longer have to force it, you embody it. The reason most people struggle with change is because they try to change results without changing habits. They want to lose weight but still keep the same eating routines. They want to save money but still spend impulsively. They want to have better relationships but never practice listening. Identity can't be faked long-term because your habits always reveal the truth. Your daily actions expose what you really value, regardless of what you say out loud. If you want to reshape your identity, you have to start with reshaping your habits. This is why small, consistent actions matter so much. Each habit is like casting a vote for the person you want to become. If you run once, you're not a runner. But every time you lace up your shoes and put in the miles, you're casting a vote that says, I'm becoming a runner. If you meditate one time, it doesn't make you mindful. But when you sit down consistently to breathe and reflect, you're building an identity of peace and awareness. Each vote matters, and eventually the majority of your votes create who you believe you are. It works in the opposite direction, too. Negative habits also shape identity. If you repeatedly procrastinate, you begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through. If you constantly scroll instead of focusing, you start to identify as someone who's easily distracted. That's why breaking bad habits is about more than just changing behavior. It's about reclaiming how you see yourself. Every time you resist an old pattern, you're telling your brain, that's not who I am anymore. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing how you define yourself. What's powerful is that identity makes habits easier to keep. When something is part of who you are, it doesn't feel forced anymore. A person who identifies as a healthy eater doesn't have to fight as hard to avoid junk food. It simply doesn't align with who they believe they are. A person who sees themselves as a learner doesn't have to be reminded to read. They naturally crave growth because it's part of their identity. Once your habits and your identity reinforce each other, you create a cycle that strengthens with time. So the real question isn't, what do I want to achieve, but who do I want to become? When you focus on identity, the habits follow. If you want to be confident, build habits of self-trust. If you want to be strong, build habits of discipline. If you want to be peaceful, build habits of reflection and gratitude. You don't need to change everything at once. You just need to start voting daily for the identity you want to carry. Over time, those votes add up, and one day you'll look back and realize your habits didn't just change your life, they changed who you are. Most people believe the only way to change their life is to go all in, push themselves to the extreme, and transform everything overnight. That's why so many resolutions fail. You see it every January. People flood the gyms, start strict diets, and set huge goals they can't keep up with. Intensity feels exciting at first, but it doesn't last when the reality of life sets in. True change doesn't come from how hard you push in one moment. It comes from what you can sustain over the long run. Think about a fire. You can throw gasoline on it and watch it flare up, but it burns out just as fast. Or you can keep adding small pieces of wood, steady and consistent, and that fire will last all night. That's the difference between intensity and sustainability. Intensity creates bursts of action, but leaves you drained, while sustainability builds rhythms you can actually maintain. Real growth doesn't come from one giant effort. It comes from building small habits that are so manageable you can keep them going even on the tough days. When you only rely on intensity, you set yourself up for burnout. You sprint for a week, then collapse. You study all night once, then give up on learning. You try to overhaul your diet in one day, then fall back into old habits when it becomes too overwhelming. Sustainability works differently. It asks, what can I do today that I can also do tomorrow and the day after that? It's not about being extreme, it's about being consistent. A small step repeated is more powerful than a giant leap abandoned halfway through. This is where people misunderstand discipline. Discipline isn't about doing the hardest possible thing every day. It's about showing up in ways that are realistic and repeatable. If you can't keep up with a habit, it won't matter how good it looks on paper. The best system is the one you actually follow. A 10-minute workout done every day beats a 2-hour workout done once a month. Reading 5 pages daily is more impactful than reading 100 pages once and never picking up a book again. The winners in life are not the people who start with the most energy, they're the ones who can keep going. Another mistake is thinking sustainability means weakness. People hear sustainable and assume it's easy or watered down. But sustainability is actually strength because it takes wisdom to pace yourself. Anyone can push hard for a short time, but it takes strategy to keep moving for years. Sustainability isn't about lowering your standards. It's about designing habits that fit your life in such a way that they become natural. When something becomes natural, you don't rely on willpower anymore. And that's when habits stick. The beauty of sustainability is that it allows room for growth without perfection. When you build sustainable habits, you don't quit just because you miss a day. You don't collapse under the weight of one mistake. Instead, you get back up because your focus isn't on intensity, it's on consistency over time. Sustainable habits give you the flexibility to fail without giving up. That resilience is what creates transformation because the longer you stay in the game, the more progress you'll see. Think about your own life. Where are you trying to sprint when you should be pacing yourself? Maybe you're trying to fix everything in 1 week instead of one step at a time. Maybe you're aiming for perfection instead of progress. Ask yourself, what habit can I start that I know I can continue a year from now? That's the habit that matters because the truth is, sustainability beats intensity every single time. Not because it looks more impressive, but because it lasts long enough to change who you are. One of the most powerful truths about habits is that their impact multiplies over time. At first, they look small, almost invisible. You drink more water for a week, you don't notice much. You read a few pages, it doesn't feel like your life has changed. You save a little money, and it seems pointless. But what most people don't see is that those small actions are stacking on top of each other. Day after day, repetition builds momentum, and that momentum creates exponential growth. Habits compound the same way interest does in a bank account. Think about compound interest for a second. You put in a small deposit, and at first, the growth looks slow. But as time passes, the money multiplies because interest builds on interest. That's exactly how habits work. The benefit of one habit doesn't just add to your life, it multiplies when paired with time and consistency. Reading a book once doesn't change much. Reading daily for years expands your mind, sharpens your perspective, and transforms your ability to think. One workout doesn't matter, but months of movement reshape your health, your energy, and your confidence. The compounding effect also explains why bad habits are so dangerous. One cigarette doesn't ruin your lungs. One night of poor sleep doesn't drain your health. One impulse purchase doesn't break your finances. But repeated over months and years, those small negative habits grow just like the positive ones. They slowly erode your health, your mindset, and your future. The same power that can build your life can also destroy it, and it all comes down to which habits you allow to compound in your direction. This is why patience is critical when building habits. The early stages will always feel unrewarding. You'll ask yourself, is this even working? Because you can't see immediate results. But change works like a curve, not a straight line. The beginning is flat and slow, but once the compounding kicks in, growth skyrockets. That's when you realize the invisible effort you've been putting in wasn't wasted. It was storing up energy, waiting for the breakthrough. The people who stick with their habits long enough to hit that curve are the ones who experience transformation. The compounding effect also influences how people see you. If you show up consistently with honesty, integrity, and reliability, over time, people trust you more deeply. That trust compounds into opportunities, relationships, and influence you couldn't have created overnight. On the flip side, small moments of unreliability or dishonesty also compound, and eventually people see you through that lens. Who you are in the future is the result of what you've repeated in the past, and the compounding effect makes sure nothing goes unnoticed forever. What's remarkable about compounding is that it rewards the long game. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stay consistent. Missing one day won't break the system, but returning the next day keeps the momentum alive. Think about brushing your teeth. Doing it once is meaningless, but doing it daily for years keeps your teeth healthy. The power doesn't come from the intensity of any single action. It comes from the compounding force of doing it again and again, long enough for the results to become permanent. So, the real secret is learning to trust the process. You might not see visible results in the beginning, and that's when most people quit. But if you understand compounding, you know every action is being stored, every repetition is building pressure, and eventually the payoff will come. Your health, your mindset, your relationships, your finances, all of it is a reflection of what you've allowed to compound. The question is not whether habits compound, because they always do. The question is whether you're compounding in the right direction. Life has a way of throwing things at you that you can't predict or control. The weather changes, people act in ways you didn't expect, opportunities open and close without warning. If you spend all your energy trying to manage things outside your control, you'll constantly feel frustrated and powerless. The truth is, you don't get to control everything, but you do get to control what you do each day. And when you focus on what's in your hands, that's where your strength comes from. Power isn't found in predicting the future, it's found in mastering your daily choices. The mistake many people make is giving away control to circumstances. They let traffic dictate their mood, let social media dictate their confidence, or let other people dictate their worth. But none of those things are actually in your control. What is in your control is how you respond, how you think, and how you act. That shift changes everything. Instead of waiting for the world to line up perfectly, you start showing up with responsibility for yourself. Control the small things daily, and the bigger things stop having the same grip over you. Think about it like this. When you wake up, you can't control how others treat you, but you can control how you prepare for the day. You can't control the entire workload that lands on your desk, but you can control how you prioritize what matters most. You can't control every outcome, but you can control the effort you bring into it. Each time you choose to manage what's in your hands, you take back a little bit of power, and that power builds confidence because you stop being at the mercy of everything around you. Controlling what you can daily is also about creating rhythms. When life feels chaotic, routines anchor you. A simple morning habit, a short walk, or a few minutes of reflection remind you that even when things feel uncertain, there are pieces of the day you can command. Those rhythms don't remove all the challenges, but they steady your footing. You start to realize that even in the middle of difficulty, you are not helpless. Control over your choices gives you stability that circumstances can't take away. Another part of this is learning to separate what's yours from what isn't. Too often, we take responsibility for things that were never ours to carry. You can't control if someone else understands you, but you can control how clearly you communicate. You can't control if someone respects your boundaries, but you can control whether you enforce them. You can't control if others change, but you can control if you keep growing. Once you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, your energy isn't wasted. It's directed toward things that actually move your life forward. The beauty of this habit is how much it reduces stress. Anxiety often comes from trying to predict or fix things that are outside your reach. When you remind yourself, that's not mine to control, you free up space in your mind. Then you can focus on small, practical steps you actually have influence over. It might be choosing to breathe deeply before responding, choosing to journal your thoughts instead of letting them spiral, or choosing to move your body when you feel stuck. Those little daily acts of control bring calm into situations that used to overwhelm you. And the truth is, control doesn't come from doing everything perfectly. It comes from showing up consistently. You don't need to control tomorrow or next week or next year. You just need to ask yourself, what can I do today that's within my power? When you build that mindset, you stop chasing outcomes and start building ownership. The day might not go how you planned, but you'll know you handled what was in your reach. And over time, those daily decisions stack up, creating a life built on clarity, confidence, and strength.